Welcome, everybody. It is Monday, July 1st. Peter, can you believe it is July 1st?
Here we go. Second
Yeah.
half of 2024 kicking off.
Second half kicking off, and we're kicking it off with Coffee with the Coaches. This is our weekly podcast. My name is Christopher Holmquist. This is Peter Valancourt. We are business coaches, entrepreneurs, business owners, friends, golfers, musicians, you name it. We do it all. So we like to talk about it all. So here we are. We are talking today about the Socratic method and the Socratic method of questioning. Sounds kind of ominous, doesn't it, Peter?
It does. It has a very dramatic sort of tenor to it when you include the Greek philosopher Socrates and
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, anytime you start invoking Socrates' name, everybody starts to go like, oh boy, what are we talking about here? So we're going to go something deep and crazy, right? But it's not. Let me just recap real quick, and then we'll get into this whole Socratic method of questioning, right? Last week, you and I talked about the 5R framework, and this was a tool that, really helped us dig into are the activities that we're doing moving us towards our kind of life goals, right? It was one of those yearly, quarterly, monthly reset tools that we've talked about before. Anything about that activity that kind of jumped out at you?
well, I really appreciated the way the framework helps us look inward. I feel that so many of us get caught up in the day-to-day distractions of running a business, operating a business. Um, the ability to stop and look at what's going on, to look inward to see where we can add or subtract just doesn't occur. So I think being mindful of that on a regular basis and having that periodic look back or look inward is so important to growth.
Yeah. And I would add, it's like it's again, lean into or embrace these paradoxes that exist in entrepreneurship and business ownership, right? On one side of the mouth, we will tell you you always have to be in motion. You always have to be doing something. You always have to be in activity, right? Um, Yet then we tell you, you know what, hold on a second, time out, sit down and go really, really slow,
Mm,
right? So I'm just always intrigued by that. And the more I think about it, the more it makes sense to me. Because if we think back to the book, The One Thing, they talk about that work-life balance. And I'm getting off topic here, but I think it ties in that there is no such thing as work-life balance, right? We tend to exist on the peripheral, on the edges, right? I mean,
yeah.
we push as individual business owners to, to do everything it takes, but then we have to, oh my God, we have to get back and do the things, take care of our families and all those other things, right? So it just kind of makes sense to me, that paradoxical living that we do. So anyway, that was that. But now that we've kind of figured out this whole thing, we've figured out our activities lined up with where our goals want us to be. Now, kind of like you and I just talked about before this, now it's time to get into action again, right? I mean, we've figured out that we're doing the right things, but we have to get into action. And one of those skills that we need to hone on is conversation, dialogue, and asking questions and getting to the truth, right? I mean,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, I mean this is why we're in business. We're in business to build relationships. I don't care if you're selling widgets, hammers, real estate, rocket ships, whatever. You have to build those relationships. And if you adopt this method of kind of Socratic questioning, you're going to have a much easier time in your business, I feel, than if you're just kind of just going for the sales, right? Um,
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Right. I mean, because that affects conversion rates and work smarter and not harder, work less, with more success. I mean, all of those things play into here. And we're going to touch on things like such as what is the Socratic method, right? We're going to break it down from a definition standpoint, as we always do. We're going to talk about a Socratic seminar or circle. Sounds even more ominous. Sounds like something out of a cult movie. And, we're going to tell you a little bit about what questions to ask, when to ask them, and then, give you some tools on employing this method of communication, because that's really what it is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So with that, we're ready to dive into the topic, and that recap and intro only took us 5 minutes, which is good. So I got like 30 seconds here just to go and do like just something that's on my mind, and that is that I feel collectively that this world, needs a timeout. Like, the analogy that pops into my head is all of us are kindergartners, and it's like we need to put our head down on the desk and for about
Yeah,
30 days, friggin' just think about what we have done and how we got here, right?
yeah, yeah. I
I
agree.
mean,
And
that's,
you brought this Socratic questioning up. Not it's been in our sort of mind to get it into the podcast for a little
yeah,
bit, and I've been thinking a lot about it lately. And we're at this weird time culturally where candor and truthfulness has been sort of supplanted by what's the right thing to say. Um, you know, this is not a political statement. This is just the climate we're in, where people are so
yeah,
afraid to say what they really feel or say what they really think because of the backlash. Um, and it's not the only time in history that this has happened. We're just in one right now.
yeah.
And honesty, candor. I was reading a lot over the weekend about this concept of radical candor. It's just saying your what you feel without the
I,
fear of offending, and
you
how
and I have
that
been
gets to the
talking
truth.
about that truth telling, right? And we are
Yeah,
employing it with our cyberbacker team, over in the Philippines and the other businesses that we're running, where, we want people to take those labels off and those judgments off of this and like, let's get to the truth, right? So you just segued into the perfect start to this because before I share my screen, let me get it up so I know what the heck I'm talking about here.
but don't you feel that this topic is sort of the fundamentals or the 101 of getting to the truth? What we're talking about today?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, and there's no more pertinent time than right now, I feel, to
yeah,
employ this, right? Because critical thinking has gone by the wayside. The days of sitting down and you and I having a festive argument or debate over a topic, those days seem to be gone, right? Because everybody's
right.
scared, to your point of saying the wrong thing, right? So perhaps if we all employed this Socratic method, right? Which is also
Yes,
known as the method of Elencus or Socratic debate. Can you see this?
I can
Right?
see it.
You can see it. All right. So that means everybody can see it, which is cool. All right. And it's a form of argumentative dialogue, right? We're already getting into trouble here because people are going to be like, I don't want to argue with people. No, it's not an argument. It's an argumentative dialogue between individuals based on asking and answering questions. Wait a second. All right. So all we have to do is ask and answer questions. Sounds pretty easy. The method begins with commonly held beliefs and scrutinizes them by way of questioning to determine their internal consistency and their coherence with other beliefs, and so to bring everyone closer to the truth. All right. Do you want a kind of a simpler definition of that, Peter?
I think that would probably help.
Okay. So how about this one? Let's try this one on for size. Socratic questioning is a method of critical thinking and inquiry that involves asking a series of probing questions to explore ideas, clarify thoughts, and reach deeper understanding. In decision making, it can be used to uncover new perspectives, to get to the truth and depth of things, and to make more informed and thoughtful decisions. Well, that didn't make things a lot clearer, did it? All right, we're going to try number three. All right. You get my point. This is not an easy concept, right? But I want you to hear these things that I'm going to say here, right? A Socratic seminar is not a debate. The goal of this activity is to have participants work together to construct meaning and arrive at an answer, not for one student or one group to win the argument. We're trying to get to the truth, right?
Yep.
So the important thing about this is that, just to really break it down for people, is that the Socratic method is a way of you and I having an argument or a conversation where we're going to ask each other's questions around some kind of a topic or belief that we're holding, right? And we're going to push and pull at each other, question each other, dig a little bit in order to see what the truth is,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Yeah.
not. I mean, Because what is everybody's intention when they go into kind of like a one-on-one argument or debate, right? Like, what's their natural tendency? I want to win.
Yeah, I want to be right.
I want to be right. How about we get to the truth and stop worrying about whether we're right or wrong?
Right. Yeah. I know it involves being able to set egos to the side and really just trust this process that um, this is a way to get to the truth, what's real.
Right. So for those people saying, well, I'm not going to sit there. I don't want to, I'm listening to you guys for business advice and not philosophical, banter back and
Right.
forth. Um,
Don't change the channel yet.
yeah, don't change the channel yet, because we're getting there. And so I'll ask you the simple question then, Mr. and Mrs. Audience, if anybody's listening to us, you know, this method, right, arriving at the truth can be very beneficial when you're sitting down across the table from a client. So let's say that Peter is a person who has reached out to me that they want to sell their home. Well, I could go in there and if I just keep kind of, steamroll or bulldoze my way over it and do my listing presentation and I don't ask any questions, well, I might get the listing, but do you think I'm going to do a pretty good job? Probably not,
Mm,
right? Don't you think that I need to know why Peter wants to move? What's important about this whole process for him? And this is not anything that we haven't talked about before, right? But I want everybody to understand is that we got to be more intentional about these conversations and how we ask questions.
yeah. This is probably in my world and probably in your world. I don't want to speak for you, but this to me is the best example of what we're talking about today. Is who is really skilled at asking questions, not yes or no questions. We'll have examples in a few minutes, I'm sure, of
Yeah.
Socratic Method questions, but the ability to ask that secondary, tertiary level question, get into what is really at issue with any one given client is what, if tying it back to what you're talking about in the beginning, is what gets us into relationship. And it's not about, you know, it's about that trust and that relationship that's so sacred, having clients for life, as opposed to, like you said, you go in, maybe you get the listing, but you don't have the relationship, and maybe that listing becomes a failed listing, or you just don't have a good experience and you don't experience any growth in the relationship or referral business from it, then that's a miss.
Or it's a one-off, right? And we never see
Yeah,
them again or hear from them or their family again. And that's not why we're in business.
right.
Um, all right, so let's dig into it a little bit, and I'm going to share my screen again. Let me see if I missed anything on that one thing here about the Socratic method or the Socratic circle. Um, no, I think we're good there. So I'm going to kind of go into this diagram here and share my screen. If you give me just 1 second. Here we go. All right. So Socratic questioning method, right? I just read this to you before that it's a method of critical thinking and inquiry. We challenge your beliefs, assumptions, and reasoning process. It's used to uncover hidden issues and problems, right? So if I just go in with questioning like, Peter, when do you need to move by? How much do you want to get for your house? How much are you willing to pay me? Right? That's just like one word answers he's going to give me. And we're not going to ever get to, any hidden issues or problems. We got to dig deeper. It's going to help us explore complex ideas and decisions. It's going to engage in deeper reflection, critical analysis, and self-examination. And it helps us to analyze concepts and explore different perspectives. So we talked about what this is, right? So it's a method of questioning, a way of having a dialogue with somebody that's ultimately going to uncover the truth. And you're like, well, great. Two more things I need to know, Krista and Peter. Number one, when to apply it, and number two, what to say, right? So when we apply this Socratic method, questioning method, look, I don't know how you feel, Peter, but I mean, I feel like you could do it anytime, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
I don't think it has to be, anything like it doesn't have to be only for, complex decisions, or whatever. But let's read some of these and just see kind of how this resonates, right? So when do we apply a complex decision? When we're faced with a complex decision that involves multiple variables, perspectives, and potential consequences. Why do we do it then? Well, because Socratic questioning helps us break down the complexity and by encouraging a systematic and thorough examination of different aspects of the decision, right? Um, it helps you to explore potential scenarios in uncertain situations and consider the various possibilities. I know that that's one of my methods. And as you're reading these, look at these and say, like, how do I generally think? Like, I just read that one and I said, well, this is really something that I lean into. I love when I am faced with an uncertain situation, like I just build scenarios in my mind and run them through and say, all right, if I did this, what's going to happen? If I did that, what's going to happen? Right?
Yep.
Innovation and creativity. Perhaps you're just seeking new solutions to something. Socratic questioning encourages thinking beyond conventional boundaries, fostering creativities and exploration of unconventional ideas. So I'm sitting there in front of Peter, and I have started to employ this Socratic method of questioning. And now, because I did that, I realized that, you know what, Peter needs some money before he can do whatever he's going to do, list his house and go buy something else, right? So if I hadn't have been questioning you, I wouldn't have found out about that, and maybe wouldn't have been able to come up with a solution.
Yep. And also there's the sort of conceptual definition of all of this, or just this really demonstrates how much you care about the relationship with the person you're asking the questions of.
Yeah.
To take the time to really want to go deeper and find out all that stuff. The exercise demonstrates that. I think that may not as be readily as obvious through this, but it really builds trust.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. It does, and people will see that. Why don't we take a look at just kind of like some of these Socratic questions, right? This is the meat and potatoes. This is why people tune in. This is what they want to see as well. Great. I understand what this is all about now. You explained it well. This is you know, um, a tool. It's another tool in your tool belt, like all of these things that we give you are. This is not to be used every single time, like your 4-year-old comes and says that they want to have an ice cream. I mean, I don't think that we need to have clarifying questions. Like, why would you say something like that? What exactly does that mean, little Elizabeth?
That's
How
a
does this
great
relate to what
example.
we've been talking about? You were supposed to be doing your ABCs. Give me an example of why you want that ice cream. Right. So, do we need to use it all the time? No. But should we use it, a lot? Yeah. I mean, let's just think about any kind of a business situation, right, Peter? Um, Clarification questions. Walk me through why these are important.
Oh my gosh. I mean, they give you the answers to the test. That's what I always say when I'm talking to new agents. You need to know what is making somebody go from thinking about it into action. There's
Right.
usually some emotional driver there. We need to know, is it a good emotional driver? Is it a negative, positive or negative? Is it a need to? Is it a want to? All of these different directions will frame how we build out a plan for success for that person. And without knowing that, we're literally flying blind. Um,
Yeah,
and
and just, we're just then, just applying a template, right? I mean, if we don't have any customization, if we don't have any clarifying data, then what does it matter how we do our job? I mean, to an extent, right? I mean, we could just it's one size fit all at that point.
right, which is probably the worst approach to the business we're in. I think you and I can speak to that
Yeah.
pretty confidently. That getting to know somebody's why and keeping them connected to it throughout the process is imperative to success. And um, I just think there's so many opportunities for breakdowns in that trust and relationship if we don't throughout the process. I always sort of joke with new agents that as soon as you sign a listing, you've got this window of goodwill with your seller. And if you've done a really good consultation, you're in relationship and you know you've got that trust built,
Yep.
the window will stay open. However, if you haven't done that, as soon as you sign that listing agreement, that window just starts to close at a rate that's unique to that deal. And
Yeah.
you don't want to run out of that goodwill because it makes your job impossible.
No doubt about it. I'm going to go even more literal, and look at, the heading there, clarification questions, right?
Yeah.
Clarity is everything. Um, and and even more to the point is that think about like Peter tells me something, and then I say, why would you say that, Peter? What does that tell Peter? It tells Peter that I'm paying attention,
Oh, yeah.
right?
You care.
That he cares. So yeah, Peter says, I need to move. I need to move soon. Well, what exactly does that mean, Peter? Is soon like, do you have 2 weeks to get out of here, or do you have 2 years to get out of here? Oh, I've got like by next year sometime. Okay, so all right, so we have like 7 months to 8 months. Okay, got it. Right? I mean, these to me are the absolutely foundational part of that,
Yep.
right?
And what do we know? What do we know about the nature of many of us in this business when we're working so hard for an opportunity and one comes along? The tendency in those appointments is like, okay, you need to move soon. Great. Well, why don't you sign here and let's get the sign up and
Yeah.
be out tomorrow for an open house. We've missed all the important foundational, like I said, steps to building that relationship and getting in touch with what's important.
Yeah. I did a little seminar or thing for my team today on open houses. And, one of the slides talked about the dangers of over talking, right? And, everybody loves their own story, right? So you might walk away from a conversation and go like, wow, this is the greatest conversation ever. And then you think about it, it's because I talk 90% of the time and I love to hear my own voice.
Yep.
You know that I know that about myself, and I'm always asking people, like shut me up. I mean, because I love to talk and I love to hear what I have to say. But in sales, we know that that's not the case, right? So how do you overcome that? You ask questions. If you're asking questions, you can't be talking.
Yes, exactly. It's the fundamentals of keeping your consultation, your relationship building on track is be the one asking the questions. That's a
Right.
great point.
So clarify, clarify, clarify. There, you can spend a lot of time here. And you're going to make great inroads if you keep on asking these clarification questions. I mean, like, don't take it to the ultimate extreme. They think you're crazy and that you can't remember anything. You got Alzheimer's or something. So, um, you know, but clarify, get to the bottom of it. Right now, let's go over to probing assumptions. What else could we assume? How did you choose those assumptions? How can you verify or disprove that assumption? What evidence is there to support that? Now, this is not, these are not questions that you're necessarily going to be like sitting there asking your client, right? Like,
Yeah.
tell me more about your assumptions. Like, dive into that, like they're gonna be like, what the hell are you talking about?
There
But
is one in there that I really liked when talking with the client is what evidence is there to support that? And
yes,
that
yes,
usually comes into play when we're talking about pricing. And um, in their mind, like most of I always joke with people, we have two blind spots, all of us do in life. It's our kids and our real estate. We have a hard time being rational about those two things. And we get those suggestions sometimes about pricing. We know how important pricing is in any climate, but especially today. And that is such a great way to address it. What evidence do you have to
yeah,
a true inquisitive, like an honestly inquisitive approach to it?
yeah.
That will bring the truth right to the top of the conversation.
You're right. And this is actually now that I'm thinking about it, now that you said that, I'm rethinking my answer. Like, this is a super important one as well, this category. Because think about all of our businesses, right?
Yep.
And anybody out there listening to this, think about your business. And again, no matter what your product is or whatever, our clients, the marketplace out there, they're all going to have assumptions. And we
Yes.
have to use clarifying questions hello, up here, in order to probe those assumptions and figure out why they are thinking a certain way, right? You might say to me, "Well, it doesn't matter what I listed at because every house is getting 25 offers." To your point, what evidence do you have, Peter, to support that? Well, John, my next door neighbor, just sold his house. He had 25 offers out of a sample pool of one. Okay, gotcha. Right? We have to probe on those assumptions. I mean, that was an easy one, but everybody can think about their own business, and I'm sure that everybody has clients who have assumptions that are usually erroneous about whatever it is that affects your business.
Right. And the best way to learn that is to go through this yourself. If you sell insurance for a living, go buy insurance, see what it feels like.
Yeah.
If you sell real estate for a living, go buy a house, sell your house,
Yeah.
see what those, because there is a sort of sea of emotions that happens in any one of those larger purchases or investments that that are just a part of the decision making process for anyone. And if you're not in touch with that, then I don't think you get to the point where you're asking these really great questions
Mm.
that will help temper those.
I just thought of something, Peter. I'm going to blow your mind right now.
Yes.
Because this one especially, we need to apply that to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what assumptions are we? So, here again, another way you can use this tool is, sit down and probe your own assumptions about stuff.
All the time. Oh my gosh, that is such a human fallibility. Oh, they're
Oh,
not gonna, they'll never sign a listing with me, or they'll never go with
yeah.
me.
What support, what evidence do you have to support that
Yeah,
thought, right? Or
right.
assumption? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, God, I mean, you start thinking about it and it's frightening how many assumptions we make,
yeah,
or at
yeah.
least me. I mean, I'll just speak for
No,
myself.
I completely agree, and a lot of it is sort of crafted by our internal defense mechanisms to save us from let down or hurt or whatever, and make these assumptions to create the cocoon around it.
Right. And why is this so important? Because I think about the fact that if I've got a whole set of beliefs and you have a whole set of beliefs, we can't, until we strip away those beliefs, then we can't get possibly to any kind of a truth.
Yeah,
It's just not possible because we're starting on two different, in two different dimensions, if you will, right? I mean, there's no possibility of overlap until we get to some kind of a common denominator. And I guess that's probably what negotiations are all about. And, diplomacy, right? I mean, it's at getting at certain, you got to get to something that people can't refute, right? Because otherwise it's all about my labels, my judgment, my assumptions, my this, my that.
yep,
Whoa, dude. We went like 6 levels deep on that one.
we did.
Um, all right, questioning viewpoints. What are alternative ways to look at this? Who benefits from this? What are the differences between X and Y? How are X and Y similar? I like this one too. This is kind of that point counterpoint type of a way of questioning, right? If we think this, well, what if we completely thought this, right? I just did a reel, I think this morning, coincidentally, and I talked about that. It was from the Daily Stoic. It was the one about do the opposite.
Yeah.
And it referenced the George from George Costanza from Seinfeld, that episode where he was just like, all of my life decisions are bad, and so therefore I've decided that whatever I think I'm going to do the complete opposite and see how it works out. Now, I don't suggest that we do that all the time, but there are again times to question, just
Yep.
because we've been doing it this way, like what if we did the complete, like what if we went left instead of right?
Right. And you see like these massive breakthroughs in technology and science and like Tesla and
Yeah.
all of that stuff happen because people are asking questions, and people are not only asking questions but questioning their beliefs and their assumptions to say, well, what if we did it this way, or what if we flipped it around, and it's just that sort of childlike, um no limits on the thought.
Yeah. Yeah, you and I talked about it. Well, we did it this morning with the team in the Philippines, right? We did that question storming too, which was kind of this neat process of if you have an idea, instead of just throwing out all these or if you have a problem, instead of just throwing out ideas, throw out questions, right? Just everybody question everything about that. And it's amazing when you start doing that method, and we can talk about that another time because it's not really pertinent to this, but it's amazing the ideas and the different things that came out of that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, so questioning the viewpoint, we've gone from clarifying everything, building our base, to then probing the assumptions, right? We kind of build the base. Now we got to just like probe the assumptions, point, counterpoint. What are the alternative ways to look at this? We're questioning the viewpoint. And from there, we go to implications and consequences. What are the consequences of that assumption? What are the implications? How does this fit with what we learned before? Why is this important? Implications and consequences are great. And again, when we're sitting down with our clients, right? Implications and consequences. We talk about it all the time, people.
Yeah.
Sure, we can list at 900,000, even though the market price is 800,000. One of the consequences of doing that might be that we have fewer showings, that not the right people are seeing it, and we could end up with fewer offers.
Yeah.
Right?
And what would it mean to you if we were on the market for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, not one showing, not one offer?
Yeah.
And then really having the discipline to sit in the awkward silence and wait for that response,
Yeah.
which is another tough thing to do. That could be another conversation altogether, but
No doubt about it. Um, and then questions about the questions. What was the point of asking that question? Why do you think I asked that question? Why do you think we did this exercise? Um, it's 3:32 now, so we're probably going to need to wrap this up. We're definitely going to pick up on part two of the Socratic method of questioning because I think that we just scratched the surface here. And I think
absolutely.
we give a good kind of overview of what it is, when we use it, and what the questions are. But next week, let's try to kind of like we'll wrap this up and kind of get into the tools that you can use, right? And get a little bit more situational and how it can really help you and kind of give you, I don't want you to walk away not knowing how to use this, right? I mean, I think it's so important that we need to hammer away next week at it as well.
Yep.
All
Yeah.
right. And, just so everybody knows, we're working on, really making this podcast look really nice. We're going to do some new banners. We want music when we come on, music when we go out, graphics. And we want people to scan on these things that we're putting up here on our screen. Check us out. Find out what Cyberbacker is all about. If you have a need in your business, we might have a solution for you. We've got amazingly trained individuals ready to do lead generation for you, database management, social media, you name it, right?
This entire project came out of your philosophy of simplifying your life. And that's kind of the North Star that I use in our business philosophy and how we talk to our clients. And if you think there's a way that you can get more, or there's a need for you to have more time in your life, whether it's for personal, family, more business, talk to us. We'd love to help.
Yeah. And we're going to get this at a bigger audience where we're really going to supersize this podcast. Hopefully, people are going to tune in and listen. So we'll see you next week for part two of the Socratic Method. Can't wait.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
See ya.